In this video, we'll be doing examples of rounding with significant figures. Our first example is 480. First, we want to round this number so that it has one significant figure. So in all of our lessons with how to count significant figures, the first thing we always do is identify the leftmost non-zero digit, which is the 4, and we base everything else off that. So to have one significant figure, I'm literally rounding to the 4th place. So the deciding number, the number that determines how to round, is the 8 and everything after it. The 8 rounds that up, and so what we're left with is 500. In order to have two significant figures now, in the next case, again, leftmost non-zero is at 4 still. Now I need 2. Now I'm rounding 8, and everything after it is determining how to round it. That 0 rounds the 8 the same, or down, depending on what you call it. And we end up having to write 480 as the number with two significant figures now. Moving on to 3 significant figures. Again, leftmost non-zero, that's 4. For 3 significant figures, I'm now rounding on that last 0. Everything after it, out here, would determine how to round it. Now there is nothing, so it's 0. So that would round that the same. So 480, but to make sure that 0 and to make that 0 significant, we need to put a decimal point after it, and now it has 3 significant figures. 4 significant figures is very similar. All we have to do is now add a 0 to what we just wrote, giving it an extra significant figure, and now we have the same number with 4 significant figures. Next example is number 17.9915. First, we want to round this to 3 significant figures. So again, we identify the leftmost non-zero digit, and then we look to 3 significant figures. So I'm rounding to the 10th place. So everything after the 10th place determines how that rounds. So the 9 rounds that 9 up. The 9 becomes a 10. The 1 from the 10 adds to the 7, making our number 18.0. For 4 significant figures now, I do the same thing. Leftmost non-zero. Then I count over 4. I want to round to the 100th place now. So everything after that controls how that rounds. So the 1 rounds the 9. And so it rounds the 9 the same. That is down, whatever you want to call it. So 17.99 is our number with 4 significant figures. And finally, for this example, we want 5 significant figures. For 5 significant figures, again, leftmost non-zero, count over 5. I'm rounding now in the 1000th place. So everything after it controls it. That's a 5 and there's nothing else. So the 5 determines how that rounds. Remember our rule, 5 rounds even. So if the number before the 5, so if there's a 5 and nothing else, the number before the 5 rounds even. If it is even, it stays the same. If it's not in this case. If it's not, you round it up to make it even. So I get 17.992. Final set of examples, the number is 6.8250. First, I want to round with 2 significant figures. So again, leftmost non-zero digit. I need 2 significant figures. Everything after that 8 then controls how it rounds. So that's a 2. That rounds the 8 down or leaves it the same. So my number is 6.8. Now, I want 3 significant figures. Leftmost non-zero digit. Count over 3. I'm at that 2. Everything after it controls how it rounds. So the 5 and nothing, there's nothing after the 5, it's all zeros. So the 5 is pure, the 5 rounds that even. It already is even, and our rule says if it is even, leave it the same, round it down, so to speak. So we end up with 6.82. And finally, for 4 significant figures. For 4 significant figures, leftmost non-zeros, that's 6. Now I count over to 4. I want to round on the 1000th place. Everything after it controls how it rounds. That's 0. That controls how we round the 5. That rounds the 5 down, leaves it the same. So 6.825 is our answer rounded so that it has 4 significant figures.